Knows in the music, the moment you own it, you better never let it go.
All right, so I got to thank Kaspersky for inviting me back to talk about it, but I definitely got to hate Ryan for going after these guys that just came up here. So, as you can see, working in a bank is never a dull moment within here, and especially when it comes to data. So, funny enough, you get to talk to me where we're going to basically talk about a lot of the people, process, and technology, and really about protecting data from leaving your network. As you can see from that, that was an extreme, sophisticated type of attack that most of the times we see a lot of times within a day. Now, for most of you that have been in security for a while, I've been in for a while, remember back in the days where you could put a firewall up and really protect yourself? Now you need a firewall, a tank, air support, and some other things just to make sure that you keep your network somewhere protected. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we look at data exfiltration in our bank and really a lot of the problems that we deal with most of the time when it comes to making sure that you understand where stuff is leaving out of your network. But first, I'm going to give a little play because I got time. As you can see, I'm a pretty cool guy. So, going through college, I was a party animal. I had my share of interesting times with the opposite of the sex. And I used to hold a lot of parties within, my college dorm. And I had all my friends and everything else, and it never failed. One time, it would always be that one girl that I wanted to sit up there and actually talk to. But of course, being the guy that I am, I had to play it cool. So I couldn't just run up to her when I saw her. So I would sit up there, welcoming inside the party, and then I would just mingle around, talking to people and everything else, still keeping an eye of like, okay, when I'm gonna make that move on that young, unsuspecting lady. What usually happens during this time, fellas? All your friends come over, they want beers, they want things, and next thing you know, you can't figure out, but you're still trying to track that girl. You're still trying to keep the party going and everything else, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna get her before the end of the night, and right when you're ready to make the move, what do? You run up there, she's gone. You missed your opportunity. You know what we used to call that? That was a silent exit. Because right now you were tracking her, you were mixing a party, making sure everything's going good, but somehow she wound up leaving outside without you knowing in your chance. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens inside a lot of your networks. You're sitting up there doing your job, your businesses and everything else. Do you have the ability to track every one of your pieces of your data? That is the hardest part that you have to deal with, and one of the major problems that we look at, and one of the things that definitely fits within the financial services. So let me talk a little bit of our past to bring us up to the future. So like I said, I talked a little bit in the past. It really used to be easy. We knew a lot of the attackers were coming in our front door, trying to degrade service within there, really just to kind of disrupt or see what they can do within the systems. Hey, just like Willie Sutton said in the United States, they asked him, big famous bank robber, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. So obviously we knew attackers were going to be there. We typically watched inside the ecosystem a lot of the attackers really heavily relying on hitting our front doors. So what we did, we spent a lot of money putting up big castle walls, putting bigger doors, putting more technology. Then something happened. Our business people got in. Cloud got big. People wanted mobile computing. People wanted a lot of pieces of technology that a lot of these defenses don't sit up there and actually lend themselves greatly to. So now these big castle walls that we wound up building were no longer effective. And not only did it start looking for a few of the banks, but pretty much not only banking, health, and every other one of the industries wind up seeing what we saw. Now our investments were really starting to be null and void because now we had to punch things through our firewalls in order to get that mobile app to work, particularly way to make sure we have that instantaneous trade so we can sit up there and do business. So that moved us into a different realm where we couldn't sit up there and put walls anymore. We had to get a little bit smarter. What we started, like I said, seeing a lot of evolution, unsophisticated attacks, but what we started seeing more on the banking side was a lot of these, and I know it's a big buzzword, so bear with me, these state-sponsored type of attacks or these what I call well-funded attacks, because really finding out whether it's state-sponsored or they're sponsored by a well-organized group is still a hard thing. You just saw a presentation that they had to do so much work just to find out, particularly about the methods, but how do you find out true attribution? And do you waste enough of that time to sit up there and do find out when you really want to prevent the damage? So from there, we started seeing a lot of efforts being put in to sit up there and get in our system, so we had to make a choice. Do we sit up there and actually focus on figuring out who's doing it, or do we really protect the data and react? We chose the latter because, and at least in my bank and in most of in the financial industries and other FIs, it really is about protecting and keeping continuity operations because as you want to be able to go to your ATM when you want to. You don't want me to say a little flash sign, hey, sorry, we had a little bit of a cyber attack. Could we give you your money maybe tomorrow when we get this taken care of? I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys would be like, that's not something that's going to work for me. So, changing our methodology to what we're seeing today. Perimeter is gone. I'm not even going to belabor on that. We know that it's not there anymore. A lot of people within enterprises and within the industry, their IT is driven by the business guys. No longer are the tech guys driving this. It's the business opportunities. And if you've ever dealt with a lot of the business guys, what do you think their biggest push is? More features, more functionalities, more capabilities. Damn the torpedoes on making it protective. It's just, I want to make sure I can get this done now because that bank or my competitor is doing it right now. Regardless of whatever their risk methodology is or what their risk tolerance is, none of the business guys care. We today as security professionals, that's where we have to focus on. And it's even more prevalent in the bank side because what is banking about? It's about speed to market, money. I laugh at people when they say, okay, you work at a bank. I tell them, no, I work at a technology company masquerading as a bank because we employ more technology in the financial services than most tech companies do. So with that, we had to evolve our mindset. How do we sit up there and actually protect this non-cheese-like type perimeter? And what we decided to do was to focus a lot of our efforts on outgoing traffic. So let's talk about this. Trending in today's technologies. A lot of things with the cyber threats that we're seeing within there, they've evolved over time. And I think what it was, for most of the people, was a testing ground. First, we started off with blended attacks. They were cool, they were awesome. You know, I would sit up there, reverse malware, and go, wow, this is pointing back into there. And honestly, if I'm reversing malware inside your network, you already have a problem. So, looking within there, where did they move up from there? Now they started realizing the whole perimeter started moving out. They started going to third-party suppliers. If you're anything like the size of my company, we have more third parties than probably a small country to sit up there and support the way we do things. We cannot sit up there and actually impose on those third parties the same type of structure that we have within my bank, within Wells Fargo. However, through contracts, we can at least give some assurances, but you won't be able to see it day to day. So your third parties are always going to be somewhere of an interesting link for you. And that's where you're going to sit up there and have to really sit up there and spend time. And as you can see in a lot of the breaches that you've heard about, to include the Anthem breach within there, probably when you sit up there and investigate, you're going to find that it was probably a third party that may have been compromised within there to actually sit up there and use that trust relationship to get in, to get to that data. That is something you got to focus on, and something attackers started way early back in the time. Moving up there, insider threat. How many people really looked at some of the stuff that's happened with Anthem and the information that has actually come out that it's been leaked? I've been studying that a lot because I wondered, okay, why would you sit up there and attack a healthcare company? You know, that's not where the money's at. Like Willie Sutton said, it's where the bank's at. How come they're not coming after me? Well, if you think about it like this, in the Anthem breach, they wound up getting personal identifiable information. I hate that word within there. Basically, information about you. Not only did they get information about you, your name, but they also got access, or at least touching access, to information about what you do, how your taxes run, what type of ailments you have in your body. What are you going to medicine for, or what are you sitting up there and actually providing a medical claim into? What other parts of life uses that type of information to identify you? A lot of companies, because a lot of companies have understand that having a long type of password within there really isn't something that's common. But most of the time when they ask you your birth date, they may ask you the last four, but some companies have gone further and go, okay, when was the last time you went to the doctor? That information is there. Now think about it even further. That information that Anthem had, they literally could sit up there and clone you. So I'm going to pick on my good friend Katie here, who's sitting up in the front smiling at me, and just imagine Katie's, she's a real hip chick. She works out because somehow they got her Krav Maga. I don't know how that worked out, but since I've been studying it forever. But she's a healthy person within there. She goes to the doctor sparingly within there. Katie also has a mortgage and everything else, or she has this. She wants to sit up there and actually have a profile that doesn't depend on her knowing a password that somebody can guess. So she gives a piece of information that only she knows. I went to a doctor at this time. I had a child at this time within there. When she calls in to authenticate herself to her bank, We know that she has a child and everything else. Well, guess what? If she was an Anthem customer, so would the attackers and everything else, and basically be able to find out who she is. So that's why it's all important within there to make sure you understand within there how important it is, the data and making sure that it's secure. Insider threats becomes a big part within there. Everything under this tax. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just even with that. Back in the day, it was all about disruptive services within there, breaking the system. Now it's about getting the information because you don't get anything by sitting up there and throwing a defacement on a website anymore. I get something by impersonating people. So that's the evolution and why we're seeing these trends. So here is what we call in the Marine Corps the foot stomping slide, the money slide. Most people inside their networks do not know how data is leaving the networks. You know why? And I'll tell you if you don't know why in the next slide within there. But there's so many access points that sit up there and come out your network, it's almost impossible. If you have a large network that says, let's say hypothetically, you have 300,000 nodes, you have 285,000 people within there, how are you going to be able to understand every piece of technology or every piece of information that's coming out? Now, most of the tech guys would be like, well, fine, I'll just put an egress filter on there. Really? On a 285K node network, you're going to put an egress filter. You're going to be looking at logs until your eyes rise to the back of your head and then back and forth. The amount of information is you're going to have to sift through just to find out the low and slow is going to be close to impossible. And then what about the other new emerging technologies that are out there? What do you do for SaaS? How many people understand how many SaaS-type connections are coming out their network? Raise your hands. Okay, you need to take a picture of this because this is essentially what our future is looking at right now. It's impossible. When somebody can go up there with a credit card and buy a SaaS service like go to Salesforce, you have no idea what data is leaving your network. And then specifically within there, you don't even know who's purchasing it. If you guys have like a supply chain like we have, you have a central choke point, but what happens? The business people still drive the amount of technology comes in. If you don't believe me, try it as an experiment. Go to your supply chain and tell them anything that's going to be a technological bought or purchased by anyone in the lines of business, they have to see me first and approve it. I guarantee you, either one thing will happen. You'll become the most unpopular person inside your organization, or your phone will be ringing off the hook, mostly like mine does. It's impossible when anybody can sit up there and purchase these services. And when you look at something like Salesforce in the cloud or Amazon, it's hard to sit up there and see what data's come in there. Now, there are technologies out there right now that can sit up there and look how many connections and maybe look at a lot of the things that are coming out of it, but I can tell you right now, it's hard. What do you do with mobile phones connected to your corp network? BYOD. Most of us have policies that sit up there and prevent data from being copied over to your corporate device, or we give them corporate devices. But then you have other things that happen like opening up stores where people can actually put new applications onto their BYOD devices that also now may wind up taking access to information that you didn't think should be accessed. And I can tell you right now, for a lot of people that believe the good container is a security device, I'd love to talk to you afterwards. It really is a container. And you have to sit up there and really work through that to make sure that it becomes a good security boundary. It's a great piece of technology, but it isn't a security type of tool. So you got those places that you can wind up losing information. Then we got the almighty end all, your end user. What do you do with them? Now, if you have end users that don't understand data classification and why they sit up there and shouldn't post things on the web, then I want to go work for your company. Because essentially, what I have most of my day is explaining to people why you shouldn't put information like this out there and how it can be used. And a lot of the times, people just don't understand because you know why? They want to make that next sale. They want to make that next buy. They want to make that next mortgage. So that's going to be your biggest things within there and something that you have to work with in that. So looking at this, does that look like a positive type of realm for us? Is everybody ready to run out the door and go get a new job? Yeah, okay, well, that's good. A couple of things about this. It is a workable problem that you can sit up there and work. It does take work, and I'll tell you a little bit of how we did it within Wells. So, a lot of things that we look at, because you see that volume at the bottom, how to manage, 100 plus IP addresses, there's no way you can sit up there and actually manage and understand where all that data is coming from. And you're talking about 132, and actually that's even more, K up of TCP, UDP ports that you got to watch. Yeah, and to believe it or not, I got an engineering background, so I can talk about that. It's almost impossible, and that's why I said it's that needle and needle into the needle stack that you got to work through. what you can wind up doing moving forward. The challenge is really on the defense side. And I throw two parts of challenges out there. One part of the challenge is really for you personally inside your organization. If you don't practice a risk management framework that sits up there and categorizes data and what data can go out and what data can come in, it doesn't matter what technology you put in place, it'll never work. Because you'll have the competing factors between your business line as well as your technology folks and your security folks, and it'll never align. You got to put a risk management framework that says if this type of confidential or restricted type data has to traverse your network, this is how it's going to do it. And oh, by the way, if it's sitting in your network, this is how it's got to be encrypted. Because honestly, in those attacks that you keep hearing about, even about the using the SWIFT system, a lot of data had to been pretty much open text to be able to see it. If it was encrypted inside your network, what would happen? They would have to find and compromise the CA, make sure to compromise the keys, and that means more exposure for them. Attackers don't want to do that because they got people like Kaspersky sitting up there searching for them, and they got limited time. But we as technologists don't do that. You know why? Because what does encryption do? It slows everything down, makes it impossible. It breaks systems. It does all these things. Well, it's supposed to break systems because it's supposed to keep that data as secure as possible so you can't inadvertently just touch it or access it. We got to do better. So that's a lot of the challenges you have to run through, is really teaching your community how to sit up there and do something that they're used to doing so much faster, maybe a little bit slower in a secure manner. And this is the reason why. At this slide that you're seeing behind us is really about the discovery timeline of a lot of the cyber espionage. And Kaspersky is probably going to make me have to update this because the way that they've tracked down Carbonite was really fast. And I got to give it to Peterson and the rest of these guys within here. But that's what you're looking at. That's how quickly people can sit up there and get inside your network, and this is how long it takes you to sit up there and find it because of the volumes of that. Got to have more reflexive services that we can sit up there and actually find these things. And like I said, it goes back to your risk management framework, as well as your technology investments to make sure that instead of trying to keep that castle locked in the front, you're more worried about things that are coming out. And that's where a lot of FIs are putting a lot of their money into. Forget it. We're going to put and do adequate enough to make sure we have good defenses. I'm going to make sure the door of my house isn't a straw door. But you better believe, trying to get in my refrigerator and pull my beer out and leave out the door, you better have a tank or something else coming out there because you're not going to make it without me at least giving you permission or not. That's the way you got to look at your mentality, your network. So, let's talk a little bit about challenges about this because this isn't rosy. It's not something you can do overnight, sit up there and actually have your network and have a big door that watches everything coming back out. Why? You got to deal and compete with zero-day malware. I mean, some of that stuff that you saw up there on the screen with those attackers, did a lot of you guys even perceive that that would even be possible? Now, for most of us on the banking side that looks at the SWIFT, we know the system inside out. We would have never imagined that somebody would have crafted something in the malware-wise, Perl script-wise, that was sat up there and taken advantage from our IBM AT systems into our SWIFT systems. It's not something we would think about. So, when you start looking at this, you got to start categorizing these challenges, put contingencies plans around them, and make sure that you work on it and you just, most of us do, kind of hold our thumbs and kind of hope that everything works out. But that's pretty essentially all you can do. Is it effective? It is. Is it 100% bulletproof? Probably not. But if I can sit up there and thwart 98% of the attacks and then maybe 1 or 2% may get through, but I recover fast enough, isn't that a better story than sitting up there and being attacked all the time and then not knowing what to say, where to do, or what to do next? So those defensive challenges within my world within Wells Fargo, we have contingency plans for every last one of them. We have corporate programs for every last one of them. We spend a lot of money to sit up there and actually build this into our IT stack and into our IT approval. You can't sit up there and get a new emerging technology like bracket computing without going through that risk assessment, without looking through those things to make sure you have a contingency plan for every last one of them. You just won't do it. So sometimes we have to trade off between slow to market because of that, and sometimes we have to trade off of do we allow to take that risk? Like I said, it's a tap dance, but we seem to be doing decently well. So I want to bring everything back to practicality because this is SAS and we're all technical, and I like to be able to do technical things rather than sitting up there and talk about nothing. So let's talk about 2 recent attacks that pretty much were prevalent all over everywhere and really wound up exposing some interesting things. So we got Heartbleed and we had the Bash bug. Both of them huge impacting because people were like just skull blocked. A bug in SSL, the encryption that we actually use to protect data, not something that anybody, when they woke up and saw that, was pretty happy about. As well as a lot of things with the bug bash. These are key. And look at the discovery time win there and what they wound up doing. Funny enough, a lot of stuff was disclosed in 2014, but as you see within the bug bash, people knew about it since 1992. Think somebody was using it before then? Probably so. Either way, these are the things you wind up contending with. So, let's talk about why they're important. Look at the time that it took for researchers all the way straight through to start looking at how they were going to wind up finding these systems. So let's talk about Heartbleed. 12 to 24 hours. Within 48 hours of that time, there's already exploit code that was out there. How do you get your organization to sit up there and react to anything that fast when probably in your organization, you don't even know where everybody's using this SSL library? I mean, for us, we were lucky at the point in time because we did a little bit of work to understand what encryptions, algorithms we were using, but going down to the dev teams and asking them that, it was an interesting conversation because most of them didn't know. They just basically pointed out and said, libraries. Yeah, we use a library. Okay, which library? Within there. It was painful. It probably took us at least 48 hours to figure out that. And they already had exploit code out there. So let's move over to bug bash. Okay, kind of sort of the same thing. Half the time, 6 hours. Even faster time to get destructive type malware. Not malware where you could get it, just destructive malware. These are the speeds that you got to sit up there and actually build inside your contingency plan in order to sit up there and enact and protect your organization. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, without putting investments in there, or at least having a framework that you work off, you're always going to be behind the curve. Yeah. This is the one slide where I sit up there and I spend the most time to because I've really got to sit up there and actually explain to people it isn't as bad as I might talk about it, but I'm a big guy and I write doom and gloom, so I spend a little bit of time on that. You always got to sit up there and operate with the assumption that somebody's inside your network. We already know this as security professionals, and it's not. But what you got to do that'll make it a lot easier is really build a methodology that really doesn't focus heavily on people getting in, but more on data going out. Sit up there and stress the business lines to go, no problem, we're not going to stop you from using your data and sending it out. We want to know what key pieces of data that you do need to get out and to whom. So when we start seeing anomalies or places where it's jumping to, we can alert ourselves and go, okay, what's going on with this? Why are we sending something to Singapore when we've never done business with this person? Let's get on this. That's how we're going to find things. Yes, it's a chicken and egg thing, it's a cat's mouth, but it's the best methodology we have right now because technology will not be able to save everything. Okay. Got to apply what I call barbarians at the gate. Nobody is trusted. I don't care who they are. Third party within there, you can't trust them. I know Katie for years. If she calls me up talking about, Steve, what's my credit card? I'm still not going to trust her. You have to take that mentality about the barbarians at the gate. Taking a couple of minutes to sit up there and actually verify things before you move forward. I know the business hates it, but you know what? It'll save you a lot long in the long run. And you'll be able to understand and know your system, which is a key component in understanding. He who knows the network owns the network. And Dave Vitale, a good friend of mine, used to drill that in my head when it came into learning security. And it's the truth up until this day. Okay, we come to Kaspersky for one big reason. Understand the tradecraft of the attackers. I don't know about you, but most of the time I don't sleep because I got to be on multiple different IRC charts and really in a lot of deep places just to figure out what's going on. You got to find a way to have a cyber threat investment where people are actually giving you profiles so you can sit up there and understand that. Understanding that will be able to help you drive how the businesses are looking at applying technology because they don't know it. And guarantee they look to you to be able to tell them, and if you don't know it, you're already behind the 8 ball. And the last point within there, as I look at my time, because I want to make sure I have time for questions within there, most of the time, especially in the financial sectors, any bank, doesn't matter who it is, Bank of America, Wells Fargo within there, there's an underlying current and culture, and it's not built on security. And the reason why I say it's not built on security is from a technological standpoint. They do believe in secure things, but you got to remember, these are business aspect people. They believe in secure processes within there, and this technology stuff came way after. Most of us in the security community, we realized C was written how long ago, and we're finding the issues there. When they created the C program, nobody thought about these attacks. The same things with these processes. When the business was built around in the bank, nobody thought about we would be so ingrained with technology right now where we'd have to figure out the same methodology. You got to help your business people out, because I guarantee they're sitting up there looking, how do I continue to keep this business going at the same time while sitting up there and exploiting technology. So you're going to have to promote an optimistic culture. And a lot of times they don't want to believe that, oh, what do you mean this technology is not secure? I just spent like $3-point-something million on it. It better be secure. Well, we all know it's just like car insurance. You hope for the best, you plan for the worst, and then you see from there. So, summing everything up within there, the basic thing I could want to tell you, and what this presentation winds up giving out, is that you could get the coolest toys within there. You could have the best hackers, left and right, inside employed. You could also have the best defensors. But if you don't start looking at the soft side, and I wish Peter was here because I was going to give him a shout out, the human aspect, along with a risk framework with technology, honestly, is the way that we're going to be doing things from today up into the future. Because right now, I'll tell you, most of the technological security problems that we're having, they're small and few between. Back in the 90s and 80s, when me and Katie were in security within there, and Ryan and everybody else, they were big, vast. But as you start seeing, they're really shrinking. There are very few technical security problems that I would say compared to when we came out. But on the process and people side, we got chasms of problems. They just haven't kept up. And that's where we need to start taking a little focus on. Not much, but a little focus to try to get everything to wrap together so it'd be cohesive. So with that, I believe that's my last slide, and come up with the bar with that, but I do thank you for your time.